Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, the Atlanta Falcons kicked off their season. Everybody was excited. We were excited. We bought into the hype. We said we're ready to get hurt. And did they hurt? I mean, I don't think they possibly could have hurt us. I think we're going to break this down into two because I think we need to talk about the offense solely by itself because that was the most inept part of this entire thing. That was the part that we were really excited about. We did say it could take some time to gel, but I will say from what we saw on Sunday, it looked a little bit more than, oh, this is just a gel thing. And there's two aspects that I think are really concerning, and they kind of go, it's either one or the other, right? Zach Robinson's play calling. I have no idea what the hell that was. I mean, we were sold all offseason, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, this guy's such a bright offensive mind. There's no play action. They basically told the Steelers what they were going to do. If it was out of a pistol formation, they ran 81% of the time. If it was out of the shotgun, they ran 0% of the time. I mean, the Steelers knew what was coming. And guess where? They probably figured that out. They probably looked at things at halftime and said, hey, this is what they're doing. And guess what happened in the second half? This team could not move the ball. I think that was very discerning. The other thing is, was this a game plan issue or was this a Kirk Cousins isn't 100% from his Achilles issue? Because I don't think you could go back to any NFL football game ever. Maybe we go back to the 1970s or something where a quarterback didn't move this much. I mean, he never left the pocket. He never moved 3 yards to the left, 3 yards to the right. They didn't roll him out. They didn't want to put him under center. I mean, there was clearly, in my opinion, some sort of, hey, this is what we have to deal with because he's not quite there in terms of injury. And they told us all offseason he was fine. He was, it didn't look fine. It did not look fine. So was it a Zach Robinson thing? Was it a Kirk Cousins thing? I'm leaning towards they kind of felt like Kirk Cousins couldn't be mobile in this game, which is why the game plan is what it was. Either way, super, super concerning.
It was a perfect storm. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think Kirk Cousins is very clearly not 100%. I think Zach Robinson is to blame to a certain degree. And you do have to give credit to the Steelers, who, we knew how good the Steelers were for our entire lives. The Steelers have been defined. The entire Steelers franchise has been defined for good defenses, and they might have the best player in football in TJ Watt, depending on, position-wise. And there's another guy on the other side that we talked about, Alex Highsmith. The entire Steelers defense is nasty. Patrick Queen's really good. Minkah Fitzpatrick is really good. Joey Porter, a cornerback, locked Drake London down. We can say, Zach Robinson didn't scheme. Kirk Cousins didn't get him the ball. Drake London didn't get it. It was a combination of everything. Like the Falcons hurt themselves, and the Steelers are really freaking good. Like their defense is really, really good. And then you saw it. And what would you do? You would line up. You see Jake Matthews on one side. You see Caleb McGarry on the other side. You go, TJ Watt, go over on Caleb McGarry and not rush a single time against Jake Matthews. And that's what they did. I think, we can go down the list and everything is true. I think Kirk Cousins is very clearly, and it doesn't even have anything to do, in terms of the injury. Obviously what you're saying is all right, moving the pocket, him, inside of the pocket. Where it really came obvious to me, and people were highlighting it all over social media, is one play in general where he needed to drive off of his back foot, his right foot, which is the injured Achilles, the one that was ruptured. And he looked like he had never played quarterback in his entire life, where everybody and their mother tells you to drive off of your back foot. That's where you get the power. You step into a throw. And he was throwing like on his front foot. His right foot was barely planted. That's where I was like, oh, yeah, he just doesn't trust it. I don't know if he's actively doing that or his body is telling him to do that, but he's very clearly not 100%. Now, to Zach Robinson, that was the most disappointing thing for me because, Kirk Cousins, last year he was at his very, very best, but his entire body of work, he's been a borderline top 10 quarterback. He's been a slightly above average quarterback his entire career. Zach Robinson, there's a lot of season left. There's a lot of game plans to make. We were sold a fake bill of goods. That was absolutely horrendous play calling. And it has more to do with, scheming around Kirk Cousins. And I think that you saw it from the first half to the second half, where the first half we were moving the ball. There was a couple of breakdowns in the drives, but we were moving the ball in the first half. And everything came to a halt in the second half. And that has everything to do with the Steelers adjusting and the Falcons just sticking with the exact same game plan. There was no thinking ahead. It was just one play after another. There was no play setting up another play, which is what Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay do so well that we just didn't see whatsoever. everybody was talking about this guy's the next great thing. And obviously, it's just one game. I'm sure he learned a lot. I'm sure he's going to adjust. He has to adjust. But that was one of the worst showings I've ever seen for a guy that is supposed to be hot stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I really am almost, I don't know what, like, that's what I said. I don't know what I'm hoping for more. Kirk Cousins not being 100% or Zach Robinson being one of the worst offensive play callers that I've ever seen, because I've never seen an offense literally tell a defense as good as the Steelers what they are going to do before the game. Zero play action. I mean, I can't fathom that there was no play action in the entire game, especially when these guys are just pinning their ears back and rushing Kirk Cousins, especially. It doesn't even make sense. Like, that's what tells me that there had to be something significantly wrong with Kirk Cousins in the ability that they thought he was going to be able to move, because zero play action. I mean, what? I mean, we watched Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan was here. I mean, it was play act. The first play of every single game was a play action post to Julio Jones for 20 yards. We watched that at least 10 times. I mean,
well, Kevin O'Connell did it with him last year. Like, this is what Kirk Cousins is good at. Kirk Cousins doesn't just drop back like Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers and pick you apart because he's got that kind of arm or he's that smart. Kirk Cousins is a in-rhythm, in-system guy, and the system let him down, and then he, just compiled the mistakes where, like, he didn't even look like he was comfortable in the pocket, whereas, like, he's an 11-year vet. Like, TJ Watt is coming off that right side against Caleb McGarry. Like, he's coming, and we got bailed out. I mean, it should have been worse, whether it was the refs or that tipped would-be interception that Ray McLeod ended up catching. Like, it could have been much worse than it was. Or, like, the George Pickens, we'll get to the defense, the George Pickens offensive pass interference, weak. Like, the Falcons got a lot of calls, and it was just awful. It was piss poor from the offensive side of the ball. TJ Watt said something, one of the aspects we were talking about, the offense, the defense, all this stuff, was the stadium and how maybe the Falcons are going to be good so that we'll have a home field advantage. The fans are going to show up. They're going to actually, be in Mercedes-Benz and be loud and make it feel kind of like the Georgia Dome. TJ Watt, and on TV it did seem loud, but it also seemed loud when the Falcons were on offense, which is an indication the Steelers fans were in the building. TJ Watt says, we had to go to a silent count, which is basically, instead of saying, hut, hut, it's on two, it's on hut, hut. You look, the guard is looking back, and when the quarterback hikes his leg, he looks forward and the center hikes it. That's a silent count that's usually used on the road. TJ Watt says that was a huge advantage for him and the Steelers pass rush. That should not happen at home. That's so pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it is pathetic. It's not necessarily surprising given, like, what the Falcons have been.
And the Steelers.
And the Steelers have a legitimate, I mean, like, it was not surprising how many, and I did think, from what I saw, at least on television, what I heard, I did think there were a lot of Falcons in the building making their presence. I thought I wasn't too, like, concerned about the Steelers because I knew they were going to pack out that building. I mean, that's what the Steelers do. They do that literally everywhere they go. It's unfortunate that it happens, but, like, listen, that's just credit to a fan base that has had a lot of success and they are willing to travel for their team. And I'm gonna cautiously say that I don't expect that every single week, but the Chiefs are coming down in a few weeks, and I guarantee you it'll be pretty loud for that. But offensively, and we'll get into the defense after the break, it was one of the most discouraging aspects. We talked about this group potentially being a top 5, top 10 unit.
Good news is it can only get better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we did say it could take some time to gel. But I did, even taking time to gel, I thought what we saw from Kirk Cousins, especially from Zach Robinson, was inexcusable. But we will get to the defense coming up after the break.